Hello everyone and welcome to a very special stream. It's the Tall Tales Shores of Gold stream and we are excited to be taking a deep dive into exactly what Tall Tales is. And today I'm joined by Mike Chapman, Design Director, and Andrew Preston, Senior Designer, and we are going to be taking your questions at the end of this stream. So please do get those prepared, but we've got a super exciting trailer up first. I know I'm excited to watch it. Are you excited to watch it?
I'm pretty excited.
I'm really excited.
Are you excited?
Yeah, I've not seen it in a couple of days. So.
Yeah.
You're excited, aren't you?
I'm very excited. In fact, I'm so excited that I just can't wait to play it, to play the trailer.
But are you excited? Are they excited?
Yeah, excited. Is everyone excited behind the camera?
Excited? Yeah.
Come on.
But there's also spoilers in this, so please, if you don't want to see what the story is in Tall Tales, then please don't watch this because it will be spoiled if you haven't already seen the window that's over my shoulder there.
Don't draw attention.
But I think we're going to do a 100-second countdown here into the video. So
Only 100?
Only 100, but
well,
we're
in a rush.
Yeah. Without further ado, let's play the trailer. Here we go.
There is an island that lies beyond the borders of this world. Impossible to reach without great power. The Shroudbreaker is that power. And there are many on these seas who seek it. But this adventure belongs to you. Follow the clues left by those who came before, and the rewards within your grasp are riches unimaginable. If you can face those who guard them. Well, what are you waiting for?
The skull of a skeleton lord. Impressive. But you must take care, for great danger lies ahead.
Well, that was exciting. I hope you all enjoyed that. I know I'm excited for Tall Tales on April 30th. Are you guys?
I'm pretty excited.
Yeah.
Let's not do that joke again.
So before we get stuck into some of the behind-the-scenes videos that we had prepared, I thought I would kind of ask, so where did development start on Tall Tales? Like, why did we choose to do it?
I think talking about it and setting the plans in motion started pretty much immediately after launch. When we're looking at kind of what we wanted the first year of Sea of Thieves to play out like, when we were talking about megalodons and forsaken shores and skeleton ships, I think that was the time we were looking at the roadmap and almost going, the last kind of itch we've got to scratch in that year is more storyful quests, like quests that deliver that centered narrative. So I think the plans were set in motion almost immediately. And as we delivered the first kind of content updates and the team freed up, that's when we started to prototype and try out some ideas, especially in terms of how we deliver story-based quests in a shared world. And then we started kind of writing the story, probably like summer onwards, and then we got the full team on it, and we are where we are today.
Yeah, because there wasn't initially that overall arc, right? It was more like disjointed stories.
Yeah, and initially it was kind of, we focused purely on like emotions for different tales, what kind of emotions we wanted players to feel, and we targeted them at first. Like we had the tale of love, the tale of wonder, etc., and we started planning out gameplay mechanics and what those particular stories could be about. But then we kind of looked back at it after we'd done maybe 3 or 4 of them and started trying to develop it into like a greater arc of a story.
I think we've always been incredibly passionate about the idea of telling story in a world like the world of Sea of Thieves, and I think we realised very quickly that we wanted to be obviously we're always ambitious, but we want to be even more ambitious, and connecting them together as part of like an overall epic tale felt like the right way to take players on this journey.
It just made the whole thing feel a lot more cohesive as well. It was a much deeper kind of story when it all interlinked between one another.
So, the same way we talked about Insiders with Arena and with the Hunter's Call stuff, we introduced Tall Tales into Insiders as well. How did that go down, and what was the process for that?
It was kind of a gradual process, because obviously we've got multiple tales and we needed to test them at whatever kind of state they were at in development at that time. So we pushed like one tale first, and that kind of went in, and we went through that process. But I think out of all the things that we've put into Insiders, Tall Tales has probably benefited the most, because there's so much iteration in terms of what players are doing on a tale, how they're balanced, the kind of difficulty of certain puzzles or challenges that they face. So we've kind of used Insiders throughout to really try and hone in the balance, I'd say.
Yeah, completely. It is very much it's a game within a game, if that makes sense. It's got its own difficulty balance based on where that tale is within the story. It's got its own mechanics that it introduces. And even when Insiders are playing the game and they're not giving feedback, which obviously we massively appreciate, just all the telemetry we get back 100%. And we see kind of the puzzles that people are getting stuck on, and we can iterate on that straight away. So absolutely invaluable to have Insiders part of this process.
Yeah. So thank you very much. If you were in that Insider program, you did help us along with that. Where like Nick said, it was invaluable. So you did talk about the different mechanics that were inside that, and we took some time with Stephen Frost and yourself, Andy, where we sat down and we talked about traps. So we did record a behind the scenes a little earlier, and we'll roll it for you now. Hello and welcome to another Behind the Scenes on Sea of Thieves. Today I'm joined by software engineer Stephen Frost and senior designer Andrew Preston, and we are talking all about traps. From a design perspective, what is the thought process behind traps?
Well, when we first started kicking off Tall Tales, we wanted to look at getting traps into Sea of Thieves. We really wanted that kind of Indiana Jones perilous feeling in the game, and started planning out how we were going to build a system around that. We actually looked at trying to separate them into two distinct areas. We had triggers, which are anything that can kind of trigger a trap, like a lever or a pressure plate. And then we have actions, which are kind of the outcome of the trap. So like maybe a big blade like swinging inside a cave, or maybe some spikes coming up out of the floor. And we built it in that way so we could kind of mix and match triggers and actions in any kind of combination, so that we could have all this different gameplay variety for players.
And so what are some of the technical challenges we faced by bringing that into that online shared world?
Yeah, so there were many technical challenges. I mean, to the kind of system that Andy spoke to about kind of like combining triggers and actions, building that system in a flexible way so that, you know, designers like Andy can combine these in many different ways that weren't even originally planned was quite difficult. And specifically with kind of networked games, synchronizing these things between the client and the server is really difficult. So like for the scythes and swings, for example, you know, kind of synchronizing them between the client and the server was a big challenge, you know, both from kind of a tech point of view and from a gameplay point of view.
Yeah, I mean, like we're a first-person game and a network game. We made a lot of adjustments to the kind of hit captures of the traps to make sure that you never felt cheated when you were kind of going past them, and that they were like actually clipping the back of you, but you felt as a player that you'd actually gone past the trap and overcome it.
What sort of types of traps are we going to see?
We've got a variety of traps ready to go for Tall Tales. As soon as we kind of got the system in place, we started experimenting quite a lot with like the different types of traps. We started with scythes and like your kind of traditional Indiana Jones kind of traps. We've got kind of pressure plates in caves where if you stand on them, it'll trigger like a set of traps for players to overcome. And we've got levers that are kind of in a dormant state, and if you go and pull them, then it'll actually activate traps, and you can kind of use those against threats like skeletons.
And traps are part of the emergent world that is Sea of Thieves. They kind of behave in the way they expect and kind of interact with other parts of the world. So if you see kind of chickens or pigs running along or skeletons, the traps will probably interact with them in the way you expect to.
So it sounds like you've created an amazing tool there. So what are the plans for traps moving forward?
Well, obviously we've got all the traps that are part of Tall Tales Shores of Gold, and then they're persistent in the world as well. So those islands will permanently have those traps on them. But I see us creating new traps in the future with kind of new gameplay, and then getting them in around more islands in the world as well. So up until now, the islands have been stages for players to create these great adventures and have these great stories on them. And obviously adding traps and mechanisms into that mix is making the islands a lot richer to interact with themselves. So going to get more and more stories out of that. So we want to keep adding traps and adding mechanisms onto the islands to make the world richer.
Awesome, well, that's a really cool insight into traps, and I hope you're all up for the challenge when traps come as part of Tall Tales and the anniversary update on April 30th. Cheers. Did that make sense? That all made sense, right?
I hope so.
So, obviously watching the traps was super interesting, but why did we choose this particular story with Shores of Gold?
Well, I think when we made the change Andy referenced earlier to make a continuous story that kind of led into each other and you went through it in sequence, I think the thought process at the time was, what's the thing that can motivate the story? What is going to drive excitement around doing the Tall Tales? And when you think about adventure tropes like the Lost City of Gold, the Legend of El Dorado, it felt like the trope of finding a fabled island out there in the Sea of Thieves that no one has found was the perfect kind of grounding for the story. So we started with the concept for what is the Shores of Gold, the idea of reaching this place called the Shores of Gold, and then that drove the story in terms of acquiring the Shroud Breaker as this artifact that could allow you to get there, and then that being the kind of narrative device that drives the story forward by assembling the Shroud Breaker to reach this fabled island. That's everything that drives the story. And beyond all of that, I think the idea of telling the quintessential Sea of Thieves pirate story of reaching this island and then engaging with the characters that you do. I'm being very careful not to spoil anything, but it very much is the story that we wanted to tell. And we've explored some of these ideas in the expanded universe stuff like the comics and the novel, but I think that stuff's great to build out the world, but I think we're big believers in making that relevant in the game in terms of the gameplay. So if you discover it through the novels and you see it in the book, it's going to make it so much more powerful. And then the other way, you might read the novels after playing the game, and it all feels like one cohesive world. That's really important to us.
Sweet. And so we just saw the video on traps here, but there's lots of different parts designed in this game. What is some of your favourite mechanisms?
It's a tough question because there's a ton of cool new mechanics that we introduced with Tall Tales for sure. Personally, I'd probably say that the quest book is my favourite mechanic that we've made. I think that's just because of its kind of scope and potential. Each tale has a unique quest book that has a unique story, has a unique styling, both visually and kind of the way the story's told. They portray different emotions, but it's a great tool for us to introduce new types of gameplay that we couldn't do before with just procedural kind of maps. So they're very kind of hand-authored, handcrafted. So it's just a great tool.
I find it incredibly hard to pick, but I think if I had to pick, I'd probably choose the Collector's Chest, which is the new chest that we're introducing with Tall Tales. A chest that you can open for the first time, and it can deliver objects for a tall tale, but then you can use it as a tool. So it's a really simple thing, but I guess it kind of backs up what's powerful about the gameplay in Sea of Thieves, that you can have a really simple mechanic, but it's used in all these various ways. And the fact that players can put bounty skulls inside, or they can put treasure artifacts they found inside. Lots of players will do that if they find one of these chests for the convenience, but then that leads to moments when you board someone's ship and they've got one, you open it, and it's got the treasure that they've put inside, and it's like this player-created treasure chest, and I think that's just really special. So I'm really proud of that one.
Yeah, and we spent some time chatting the other day about exactly what Tall Tales was. So I think we're going to cut to the video in a second and see what we're chatting about there. But just before I go, I'd like to remind everybody that we are taking questions at the end. So do get those questions in. After this video, we will be answering some of them. But let's cut straight to the video now. Hello and welcome to another Behind the Scenes in Sea of Thieves. Today I'm joined by Senior Designer Andrew Preston and Design Director Mike Chapman, and we are talking all about Tall Tales. So what is Tall Tales?
Well, I think if we go back to the vision of Sea of Thieves, of players creating stories together, a big thing for us was creating a multiplayer game that could be someone's first multiplayer game. It could change perceptions of what multiplayer could really be. The last great barrier was allowing to tell story in a shared world, allowing you to feel the feelings that you feel when you play a traditional kind of story game, but doing that in a Sea of Thieves way in a shared world. And I think for us, Tall Tales is that Sea of Thieves stamp on it. It's the feelings that you'd feel in a story, but it happening against this backdrop of a shared world where anything can still happen.
Tall Tales brings in story to Sea of Thieves, but why is story important?
The Sea of Thieves world is full of these opportunities where different things can combine, and you can feel like you've had moments that you've never had in another game. You have memories you're never going to forget. But I think the opportunity with story is to centre in on particular emotions. And when we were building Tall Tales, I mean, the original names for the stories were around emotions and feelings. We had a tale of wonder and a tale of love. It's very much about giving people specific feelings. That's the vision for us. But I think just from a player's perspective, if you know more about the world, the reason why things are the way they are, what character motivations are, why that shipwreck is there, I think it allows players to role play more effectively in the world. So it's entirely additive to that core vision of player creating stories, because now you're in a world where you can truly get lost in it and truly feel immersed, because it feels like this cohesive place.
Yeah, we really went deep on that as well. We had a bunch of stuff in the expanded universe that we wanted to further explain and kind of solidify within Tall Tales, but also we had a bunch of things that were already kind of on existing islands already that were just kind of placed in there. Now they have kind of distinct backstories to them that you'll find out as a result of playing through Tall Tales.
We really went for this, right? Like, we wanted to tell the quintessential Sea of Thieves pirate story. You know, capture that spirit of adventure, the idea that there's this lost island out there in the Devil's Shroud, and by engaging with characters and completing these different stories in the world, you can get there yourself. And I think that really captures that adventure, Indiana Jones feel that sits so well with the Sea of Thieves world.
So when we thought about story and we thought about how we wanted to build this out, what were some of the tools to make it like a rich gameplay experience?
If you think about what we've got now with Voyages, you've got this entirely procedural system. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got what we experimented with like over the last year with The Hungering Deep and Curse, where it's entirely authored. And with Tall Tales, I think we quickly realised that we wanted to be somewhere in the middle. We wanted some things to always play out the same. So if you're going to go visit a shipwreck, we want that shipwreck to always be there. So if you're not on a Tall Tale and you're playing the game, you can go, that shipwreck over there, that's part of that story and it's got part of that lore, and you feel like you've learnt about the world. But we also want elements of the tale to play out differently. So the exact puzzle you receive or the exact island you go, there are things that can change. So we're trying to strike that really nice balance between authored elements and procedural elements. And we've kind of made that choice based on what better serves the narrative.
We started looking at things like cutscenes and voiceover as well to try and get them in and make it feel more authored. We have kind of combat dialogue with skeletons when you're fighting these new types of skeletons that we have in the game as well. So they say different lines based on their moves they're doing and everything. So it's a lot more visceral experience, a lot more authored experience.
So I think when we talk about cutscenes, it's a great example of what's really challenging about telling a story in a shared world, because what you never want to do is kind of take control away from players. You now go visit a character and they've got a little tall tale book. So the actual tall tale itself is a physical object and you vote on that book. And when obviously your crew have agreed to do a tale, the character will then introduce the tale, in a very kind of immersive way. And you're free to move around, you're free to walk away, but if you stay there, they're going to deliver the kind of framing for that story and kind of get you excited for what you're about to play.
And to help with the variety of things that players are doing within these tales themselves, we obviously invested a bunch of time into brand new gameplay mechanics that players are going to experience. We wanted the quest books to change between each tale so that each one had a distinct look and a distinct feel. Obviously, the emotions change per tale as well as part of this one cohesive narrative, but then we actually wanted the actual moment-to-moment gameplay that players play between tales to be very varied.
Mechanically, we also want to introduce things as part of the story that then enrich that shared world and really tap into the power of simple mechanics, really combining in different ways. So we realised early on that we wanted to deliver quest objects for players. And of course, the best way to do that in the Sea of Thieves world is a chest that you can open for the first time. You can actually open a chest in Sea of Thieves. And the power of that is not only do you get that moment of opening the chest and you've got a couple of objects that you need for that tale, but you can then use that chest as a tool. So in the Sea of Thieves world now, you can go around, you can go on bounty missions, you can put 3 skulls in the chest, you can close the lid, and you can carry it around.
So we think about Tall Tales in a shared world. What were some of the challenges we had there with designing that?
I think some of the biggest challenges were around how we can leverage the fact that it's a shared world and make that play to our advantage in terms of crews coming together, alliances forming and going on these quests together, but also how we kind of manage that in a shared world. For example, we have ancient puzzle vaults that have kind of been laid dormant on the islands before. And we found very early on that just through kind of paper prototyping that if everyone on the server played that quest at the same time, and they all got to that point in the quest at the same time, and they all went there, that kind of puzzle vault would become contested. So we actually created multiple puzzle vaults per region to ensure that if players were going on the same tales at the same time, then we can kind of allocate these puzzle vaults to a crew so that they can go there and have their experience that's kind of their experience. And other crews can go to a different puzzle vault. So the players are kind of split apart within the world to go and have their kind of experiences. But at any point, obviously, players can come back together within that shared world and have unique stories as part of their tall tales.
Just on a structural level, every time you play a tale, you might get a different sequence of puzzles. You might be sent to different islands. And that's on top of just the stuff you get for being in a shared world. The next time you go to the island, it could be in a storm, the fog could roll in. But just the puzzles that you served up could offer you a new kind of gameplay challenge. And reward-wise, we want to reward players with special rewards that feel like they're part of the story. So you might get specific cosmetic items that feel like they're part of the narrative you've just played. And then above all of that, every time you play the tale, you'll also get gold. So there's always a cool reason to replay a story and experience it in different ways.
And it's worth mentioning, right, that Tall Tales is not a time-limited thing. This will live on in the world for anyone to do at any point. Right?
Absolutely, yeah. This is going to be there permanently. Permanent fixture of the Sea of Thieves world. They'll always be there. I can always replay them at any point.
And it's a great way for players to get introduced to the world of Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, I think like Shores of Gold, that first narrative, that's the quintessential Sea of Thieves story that we really want to tell. But Tall Tales is really a platform. It's really a platform for us to keep adding these stories to the world. All of that is going to stay there forever. So, each time you come back, there's going to be those new stories to go and experience.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for that insight. And I'm sure everyone is super excited to get their hands on this epic adventure that is Tall Tales when it releases as part of the anniversary update on April 30th. Cheers. Awesome. Well, now it's time for that Q&A, and I see you've been sending in lots of cool questions, so we will just get straight into it, I think. So, our first question is from Gromec999 on Twitch. Will there be any new special cosmetics with Tall Tales?
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
We looked at the kind of rewards we want players achieving as part of running through Shores of Gold, and Cosmetic Rewards as well as kind of gold rewards was a big part of that. Obviously we have commendations as well, but there are multiple cosmetic rewards that are exclusive to running through Tall Tales Shores of Gold.
Yeah, and a new cosmetic type that we've introduced as well. So you get the... it's good. So you get all the cosmetics kind of feel like they're part of the story, so they're directly related to the tale you've done. So
That's
as Andy
cool.
point, you get one kind of reward for playing the tale once. Each tale has got a reason to replay it, and you get a special reward at the end of each tale. So there's a bunch of commendations to go accomplish as well. But if you do all of the tales and all of the commendations, you get
super special.
You get a super special reward that hopefully when you see someone in the world and they've got that, they've been to the Shores of Gold.
We've also got one from .com Robots on Twitch. Are Tall Tales procedurally changing so the experience would vary with each time we play them?
Yeah. So obviously it's a highly kind of authored and like crafted narrative. So the core tale that we're telling stays the same, but like the kind of challenges and the puzzles that players face will subtly change each time that they replay through it. So there's reasons to go back through the tales and replay them because they'll play out in slightly different ways. You'll get, like I said, you get different puzzles, but they'll also kind of deepen the narrative within that tale itself. So you'll get to learn more about the characters, more about the storyline if you play through it more than once.
I think that was the bit from the behind scenes video around what we chose to change procedurally versus what always stays the same. And you definitely want some elements of the story to stay the same because that's what makes it memorable. So the shipwreck is always there. Other things that are in the other tales are kind of where they are because it's part of the lore we want to add to the world. But the actual things we ask players to go do can change as long as it serves the narrative. So we feel like we've struck a really nice balance.
Yeah. Sweet. Midnight Cord on Twitch says, do all the Tall Tales have to be played in order or only certain ones?
They don't have to be played in order. I'd recommend playing it in order. I think that's the best way to experience Shores of Gold, but they can be played out of order. Like if your friends have kind of, gone a couple of tales in and you join in, you can start from like where they started, like just like the normal kind of voyages in the game. But it's best played in order, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's been created that way. Each tale kind of hands off to the next one. So there is kind of a point where we give you a choice of tales before it funnels back down to another sequence.
Yeah.
There's that little bit,
Quite
is
early in
to give you a bit of freedom.
Yeah.
But they're kind of created in a way that they lead on to the next.
Yeah.
So all the Voyage books essentially that you're voting on there are all in the world to start with. You could like start on any of them at any point, or do you have to start with the?
No, so like they're locked based on progression. So the first tale will be there, and players can vote to start on that and start that immediately. But the second one is gated on completing the first one.
Right.
But if anyone in your crew has completed it, you're eligible to vote on it. So you won't fall behind from your friends. Like if someone's got there, like you can start the tale in that way.
I think that's a big reason behind the rewards that we chose, and there's the reasons to replay it to get the special rewards. And even if you've done all of that and you've found your favourite tale and you just want to do that tale again, you still get gold for completion.
Yeah.
So if I hadn't played Tall Tales and Andy had, I've still got a reason to want to go back through and play it again.
Sweet. So we've got another one from GrowMike999 on Twitch says, will there be new skeletons with Tall Tales?
Oh, well, I mean, if you saw the trailer there, you saw a few new ones, but there's also a few different ones in there as well, which I don't know, we shouldn't spoil now.
No, you should say that.
Yeah, but there's definitely very different looking and behaving skeletons in Tall Tales.
Yeah.
Sweet. So Fallout Scrolls on Twitch says, is Tall Tales going to be a time limited quest? I know that previously a lot of the kind of story driven stuff has been time limited that we've released, so this isn't.
No, this is here to stay. I'll be a permanent resident of the Sea of Thieves world. It's basically the Sea of Thieves campaign. So I was speaking to you earlier about this. I see as kind of going back to this and improving it and adding more kind of variation into the puzzles and kind of honing it and polishing it. But it's here to stay. It'll be here forever.
Yeah. And I know we kind of touched on this in the last video, and this question was kind of sent in before that, but Marius Lord of Wolfart on Mixer says, will there be cutscenes in these missions?
There is cutscenes. They're done in a way that doesn't take control away from you. So the Tall Tale itself is like a voyage. It's a physical quest book that you see next to some characters in the world. You vote on it in the same way, using your voting daggers. If the vote passes, the character will then address you and refer to the book and give you that framing for what the story is. At any time, you can walk away, or you can do whatever you want. You can have a drink in there. You can sit down and they'll talk to you on the floor. It's like story time. But we never take control away from you. We'd never want to do something like that.
And I know we kind of hit on this before, but Special C on Mixer says, how does progression work with my friends in different stories?
So you start where you've got the first tale unlocked. You can complete that tale, it'll unlock the next one, and they kind of unlock sequentially in order. But if anyone on the crew has completed a tale that's like ahead of you, say, then if you're on that crew with them, then you're eligible to vote on that tale, and you can start that tale and play that tale and earn rewards for doing that tale as well.
Yeah. It's your choice, essentially. If someone's got access to it, you can go do it.
Sweet. Dragon Ash on Twitter says, if you die in a Tall Tales quest, where do you respawn? What will that function the same?
Yeah, well, it functions like the main world basically. We don't want to change kind of the core systems in the game unless absolutely necessary. So all the kind of same respawning, all the same logic, it plays out as it does normally.
Archangel Michael on Mixer says, can other pirates interfere during your adventure?
They can, and like we've done some things to kind of protect players against that. One of the things you briefly saw in the behind the scenes clip was the puzzle vault. I won't go into too much detail. I want to keep that fresh for players, but this is kind of a hidden area on islands you've been visiting since launch. That's been hidden away, and you get access to go into them. We do a lot of clever things behind the scenes to protect players. So we intelligently choose which vault to give you based on which vaults are already used. So we'll pick a free one for you to try and safeguard that experience. Whereas other times when, say, the quest keys are physical objects, we've deliberately kept them so. So there is the risk that players can interfere because that can heighten the emotions. Like trying to solve a tall tale and a kraken attacks you or you're sailing through a storm. It's all there to heighten the emotions and make it still feel like it's your story.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that is what makes that kind of emergent gameplay feel so special.
That's right. That's right.
We're really conscious about that, like trying to create like a crafted narrative, but also stay true to the kind of core values of Sea of Thieves, and make sure that when you do go on these quests and you're going out there, they certainly play differently each time as well.
And that was some of the difficult design decisions we had at the very start, right? It was about how do you balance that, like what makes it.
Yeah, what like how we protect players, for instance, is where we want to kind of safeguard their experience versus letting the shared world magic kind of take over. Like being on a tall tale, and as we said, the storm rolls in, or you're fighting a kraken, or you're in an alliance, or you choose to go do a tall tale with another crew. We want to allow all of these things to happen because that's what's special about Sea of Thieves. But at the same time, in certain cases, we've made decisions to kind of safeguard that experience because it serves the requirements of the narrative.
Sweet. So we did have another one here from Zach ATK77 on Twitch. Says, will constellations be incorporated into the storyline? That one clip of the woman with her crab looking up into the stars is very interesting.
Oh, they spotted it. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Love that crab. I think the idea of doing something with the stars in Sea of Thieves is like probably
such a cool moment.
It's been around for probably years. We've talked about it. I think like the sky at night in Sea of Thieves has always been so beautiful, just like the day. And I think a lot of players have asked. Like I think Captain Falcor himself asked this, like in one of his videos, around. Is there going to be any lore around the constellations? We've always wanted to do it, and with Tall Tales, it was the perfect time. And I think there's just something so magical around using the stars for navigation, and then adding that lore through a Tall Tale, and then everybody knows. You know, once you've played the story, you can look up and go, I've played the tale and I know what that means. I think that's just an incredibly magical thing about being in the world. So yeah, it's a big part of Tall Tales.
That's very cool.
So what about Uncle Bulgaria on Twitch says, do the stories change dependent on level?
Dependent on level? No.
So your level as a pirate, I'm guessing.
No, like they certainly change in terms of their kind of gameplay balance based on the size of the crew. So if you're a solo crew, we've tried to balance the experience around the number of players on the crew and try and take the kind of like sharper edges off of it for the solo crews, and then conversely for the 4-player crews, it can be quite challenging in places as well. So like it changes in terms of it, like its gameplay balance, but like not in terms of like your pirate level or like your Athena level or anything like that.
I like the way you laughed because that's what we've been balancing all day
Literally
long.
Today,
with 4-player balance is what we've been looking at.
It's tough now.
But I think
it's tough now. Thanks, Insiders. It's tough.
But it's always been designed to be a complementary kind of experience to the main voyages. So if you think about when you're on a voyage as it stands today, the scroll is on the table. Now the table's kind of divided into 2 parts. You can have a Tall Tale book on the table, and you can also have an existing voyage. So you're absolutely free to be on a Tall Tale while doing any of the voyages for the existing trading company. So you could be on an island solving the next part of some epic story while you're there digging up gold hoarder chests or solving a riddle or taking down a bounty. It's there really cool to be complementary to kind of the core system. And of course, when you're out on a Tall Tale, you're still going to come across all the emergent rewards, stopping at shipwrecks. It's designed to just be complementary.
And I'm Grieve on Mixer says, how will players get back and forth to the shores of gold?
Oh, I don't know. We don't want to give that away. It's a
Kind
little bit
of
spoiler.
in the trailer.
We kind of hinted in the trailer. I mean, the Shroud Breaker, the story behind the Shroud Breaker, what you do with it is key to that kind of story. So, the Shores of Gold, the existence of the island is revealed to you right at the start. How you get there exactly, we should not spoil.
So Swaggy Spaceman on YouTube, nice one,
Nice.
says, well, you have to do all the quests in one sitting to complete the story. Does the progress save between quests?
It does.
Progress saves between sessions, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was designed specifically that you could come in, you could do that specific tale, and then you get your rewards from it, you get your progress, you're then eligible to vote on the next one, and of course that saves. So you can come back and pick up where you left off if you finish the tale.
Yeah, and they are kind of like nice little chunks, aren't they? To go like even if you just want
Yeah.
to drop in and play like one or
Which
two.
the original goal was to make Tales roughly an hour to complete each tale, but I think we honestly got carried away in a few
I think
places.
some
So
significantly
some
longer.
places we loved the gameplay so much we wanted to give
Yeah.
players more of it.
Yeah.
So some of them definitely go over an hour
Yeah.
by quite a margin.
Yeah.
But it was around trying to give you a good experience around kind of an average Sea of Thieves session length, which is of course is longer than some games.
It all depends on how your session goes as well, right? Like
Yeah.
if a megalodon appears or a kraken appears, or you need to pass through a storm to get to where you next need to be.
Yeah.
They all subtly change kind of how long the quest is going to take to play out. So
Or other players, I guess,
how
right?
the stars align.
Yeah.
There's so many times when I've been on a voyage and you get off the beaten track by chasing other players or
Absolutely,
being
yeah.
chased
Yeah,
by other
100%.
players.
That's the magic of it for me, though. Like that, the fact that we're telling like an authored tale within a shared world. That's the kind of opportunity. That's where the magic is for me.
The opportunity.
Yeah.
Been listening to Mr. Neat.
Joe's in there listening to
So this kind of follows on from the other question we were asked, but Sam Wolfesso on YouTube says, "Can we go to this new island whenever we want after we've acquired the Shroudbreaker?"
You could do that tale again, yes. You could absolutely go vote on that tale and go back to the island and play it as many times as you
We've
like.
discussed that a lot, haven't we?
Yeah.
In terms of that final
Don't
tale.
spoil anything. Don't spoil. Be careful. Be careful. But I think when players get there, like hopefully they're going to want to do it again many times. Hopefully it's going to provide a really cool gameplay
It's gonna be good.
experience. It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
It's gonna be good. Rabbit Dragon says on Twitch we'll be able to reread all the Tall Tales quest books at any point after we've completed the quest.
The only way you'd be able to do that currently is to replay the tales and have that gameplay experience again. I think we should make physical versions of them, shouldn't we? And
Yeah.
sell them on
Sell them, yeah.
on the store. I'm sure some of
A bookshelf full of them. as well.
exactly. I think some of our keen fans will probably make physical versions, which is going to be amazing to see. But no, you need to be on the tale to kind of read the quest books.
Fingers crossed Liz is watching.
It's true.
So this is kind of interesting to see where you go with this one. But Fallout Scrolls on Twitch says, "Is the Shores of Gold Tall Tale an independent quest, or is it in some way tied to any of the existing trading companies?"
Ooh. Well, I guess the clue is kind of in the trailer. So there's
roll it together.
please, I need to be really careful. There's definitely things you'll learn through the Tall Tales, specifically around, I guess, the experiences you've been having if you've been playing the game since launch. How you think about the trading companies, or most of them, is certainly going to change after you've played through Tall Tales. We definitely wanted to scratch the surface behind how players approach the trading companies. So you'll learn a bit more about the Order of Souls and certainly the Gold Hoarders.
That's a pro. Watchmaker 160 on Mixer says, "What happens if you drop or lose a quest item?"
Yeah, well, if it's a quest item, like a quest key that you need for a specific kind of place, you will. Obviously, the tile would be over at that point. You wouldn't be able to complete it. So, we tried to make it. That's why we give you the collector's chest, so you can protect the item. So when we deliver it up, and we kind of want you to carry the stuff around in the collector's chest, and of course you could put a mermaid gem in or a skull that you find along the way. But we want players to kind of carry and protect these items because they're key to the tale and they kind of heighten the emotions that you're on. But you can also go back to the quest giver that gave you that tale and begin again if anything kind of untoward happens.
Sweet. And that kind of ties into this next one, which is how many, X-Ray Lex on Mixer says, how many items can you fit in your chest? Can you have an entire loot hole in your chest?
It's cool.
You can fit 3.
Very specific.
You can fit 3. Like, I mean, we experimented and we prototyped
With
a
a lot
bunch
more.
of stuff with that. Like, we tried to get as many as we can, but when you go beyond a certain amount, like the pure interaction of trying to put things in the chest and take things out of the chest starts to become clunky. And we never wanted the Sea of Thieves experience to feel clunky, so that we went with 3 for that reason.
Yeah, I think we wanted the chest to remain entirely physical. We didn't want to.
You can have more than one chest, though. Like,
Exactly. Exactly.
You can find collector's chests on the beaches. Spoiler. And obviously they're part of the tales themselves as well.
Yeah, but you pretty much just look at a place in the chest. You press X if you're playing on control, and it just slides into position. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting seeing, like, going around and looking in chests, like if you're jumping on board someone else's ship and seeing
It's
what's
really
in there.
cool. It's really cool.
And we fulfil that 2015 E3 trailer.
Well, now you
Smashing
got
open the chest.
A chest you can open.
In a pirate game.
Do you want that?
Yeah, I want that.
Do you want
I
that?
want that.
You've got it. You've got it now in Tall Tales.
You get a chest you can open. You get a chest you can open. So, Fallout Scrolls on Twitch again is asking, are there any ideas with Tall Tales that would encourage or require cooperation between different crews?
I think all tales naturally lend themselves to cooperation because of the nature of them having cerebral puzzles in them. So I think working together would be in your interests in terms of trying to solve puzzles and progress through Tall Tales.
Yeah, good, very, very well done.
Thank you.
I think there's some of the magic and the stories that are going to come out of Tall Tales after April 30th will be how players work together. And I think there's definitely some special moments in there we can't wait to see people do in multiple crews.
Thievius Fox on Twitch says, how many tales are available at launch? Anniversary launch?
There's 9 tales, so 9 tales make up the Shores of Gold story.
That was a nice easy one. Minor Pup on YouTube says, will there be will there be all kinds of combat in Tall Tales, i.e. ship combat, land combat?
There's predominantly focuses on, obviously there's puzzle solving, there's combat on the islands, but we deliberately didn't go after combat between ships because frankly the world's got an abundance of that already. You can go and fight a skeleton ship anytime you want. You can go kind of go on bounties and use your ship's cannons. Like there's already enough of those kind of ship threats in the world.
They'll still turn up in Tales,
Of
like
course,
emergently, if you know what I mean.
Mm. And you kind of touched on this earlier, Andy, but Nuke Dukem on Twitch says,
That's a nice
Great.
name. That's a great name.
how easy is this for a single player?
I think, well, like we've tried to balance it to a solo player, and obviously after release we'll be continuing to balance it based on player feedback. But absolutely, we've looked at specific systems to ensure that solo players can play Shores of Gold and enjoy it as much as 4-player crews. They've been as big a focus for us as 4-player crews.
Specifically when it comes to the combat sections, that's where we've put a lot of time and effort into balancing it for a solo player. And also, just you're going to be managing these multiple items as part of a tale. That's exactly where the collector's chest comes in. You've now got, and why it's going to enrich the Sea of Thieves world after Tall Tales. You know, you're going to go make one run to the Gold Hoard or the Order of Souls to deliver 3 skulls rather than making 3 return journeys.
I mean,
so
we touched on it briefly in that video as well, the Tall Tales video, about how we approach some of the kind of core gameplay systems to try and lend themselves to solo play as well. Like initially when we were developing Tall Tales, we had bespoke quest tools that only one player in the crew could wield and enjoy, if you know what I mean. And then we quickly moved on to that to ensure that solo players could enjoy the experience and also manage other kind of critical quest objects at the same time as having those objects.
One thing as well to call out is that whole progress of the tales from one to the other. We deliberately kind of chose, and we start the story with someone like the Mysterious Stranger. That's in all of the taverns, and we've revised the tutorial. So if you are a brand new player and you're playing on your own, you're going to be directed straight to the Mysterious Stranger, and then you can choose to go do voyages, do your own thing, or you can go straight into Tall Tales. So for a lot of players, I think it's a great entry point for the game. If you're coming into the game playing Sea of Thieves for the first time, like the Shores of Gold story is a great place to do it. And because you're getting all that emergent magic along the way, you're getting skeleton ships, you're seeing this emergent weather, you're finding rewards, you're still progressing with the trading companies at the same time for finding this stuff. Hopefully that's enough for you to kind of fall in love with the rest of Sea of Thieves as well. And the Shores of Gold is the start of your wider Sea of Thieves story.
It's a great introduction to Sea of Thieves because I think for a lot of players it's what, like talking frankly, is what players wanted at launch. And like we've got round to doing that now, and like there's this crafted experience that players can enjoy together. But for a lot of players that have not played Sea of Thieves yet, this will be like a nice way to come into Sea of Thieves. But then obviously the emergent sandbox is there for everyone to enjoy the rest of the magic.
And I think that's the thing. It's like, especially if you have been playing Sea of Thieves even for a while and you want to introduce your friends to Sea of Thieves, it's a really good way to go. Like this is a cool way to showcase almost everything that's in the game in
Yeah.
a really cool way that people can kind of get to grips with. And then after that's done, you have the whole sandbox there to just play with.
Yeah, I think it's such a powerful thing to kind of peel the surface back and learn more about why the world is the way it is. And I think even if you play Tall Tales once and you have this great experience and you don't go back to it, just being in that world should feel richer and more immersive.
Mhm.
And one of the things we always like, we've called it out before, that it's so much easier to role play in the world once you've got you understand the narrative behind it and why things are the way they are. I think that'll be a powerful thing for a lot of our players. I hope so.
Yes. So String Bean on Twitch says, "Is the new island your own instance?" As is quoted here. Or will you run into other pirates doing the same voyage?
You will absolutely run into other
You
pirates if they happen to be there with the same purpose as you. So, one thing that's cool about the Shores of Gold is, I'm not trying to spoil it now,
Yeah,
but
be careful,
you need to accomplish certain things to get there. So if you do come across anyone, the magic is they're kind of there with the same reason as you, which could be a reason to cooperate, or it could be a reason to kind of work against them. And I think that is why it's cool to tell a crafted narrative, because you're giving players a different context in the world. You're not just there for the end point, you're there with all this story in your head and all the context of why you're there, and then encountering other people on that same journey is just so much more powerful. So yeah, there's going to be some electrifying moments that come out of Tall Tales players coming across each other in that world. It's going to be great.
Lone Lump on Twitch says, "Will we learn any more about the mysterious stranger in Tall Tales?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he has been pretty mysterious up until this point.
It has until now.
He still is pretty mysterious. But, yes, you will. I mean,
He's got a beautiful voice, though, hasn't he? Now?
He's got
He
a
does.
He's got a beautiful
absolutely
voice.
Shakespearean.
He's got a nice laugh as well. He's got a nice laugh.
Slightly taunting laugh,
Yeah.
I find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's one other thing we we did do is we kind of went back and got like professional voice actors and
Oh,
do
yeah.
some of this stuff.
This was an absolute blast.
Yeah.
I think writing the script for Tall Tales and having the opportunity to go kind of cast people that kind of fit the characters and the emotion that we wanted, and
It's
that
so
you sat
cool.
in on some recording sessions. It
Absolutely. Like the difference in quality, as you'd imagine, is above and beyond what we've done
was not
thus
to
far.
begrudge the team. The
No,
team did an
the team
incredible
did a
job.
great
Brings a
job,
lot of
but
character.
This is a paid profession, right? And they've done a fantastic job. There's one particular performance which I won't spoil. She was in the trailer, but it was that was an amazing performance.
Yeah.
It's great.
And of course, we're so close to it. But even in the recording sessions, feeling yourself get choked up. And I think hopefully when players are playing the tale, they have some of that emotion as well.
Yeah.
But you're really proud of the job that all the actors and actresses did.
Yeah, it's great.
Let's keep moving up, and I keep
That's good.
losing the
That's
one
a
I'm
good
doing.
sign.
Yep.
That's a good sign.
Game Extract on YouTube says, "Will there be new Will the new skeletons have any special abilities?"
Do you want to get into that?
A little bit. A little bit. There is there are new there is a
I won't look at you.
there is a new there's a new type of skeleton, and yes, they will challenge you in new and interesting ways.
Oh, come on. T-shirt.
Well, it's a pretty special moment when it happens, right? And I don't want to ruin that, because it's a great moment.
Remember,
And
they have seen the trailer, so
they have seen the trailer, but they haven't seen specifically
No, they haven't.
the specific thing. So yeah, there are skeleton lords, and they were teased in the trailer. The skull of skeleton lord, ooh.
Impressive.
And impressive, and you will be taking them on, and they will challenge you in new ways, and they've got some really really cool stuff that they do for sure. It's great.
Very nice.
So there's a 3 Sheets Neat on Twitch here, which I believe is somewhat like, I'm sure I've seen that name. That's not a pirate legend, but the
Harsh.
the-
Harsh.
Do you battle the shrouded ghost at the end?
Oh. If you play on a
Emergently, it could happen, though, right?
emergently, it could
Yeah.
happen. It
Shrouded
could happen.
ghost.
That'd be a great ending.
Check that balance.
So Darth Chalish on Mixer says, "What's a shroud breaker?"
So the
Legendary.
it's like it's
Stuff of legend.
It's a fabled artifact. It is the stuff of the ancients' legends. It is absolutely the things dreams are made of. The Shroud Breaker is an artifact, and what what's cool about the Shroudbreaker is we actually seeded the lore very loosely in Forsaken Shores. It's no mistake that the ship that Grace Morrow sailed in, that's crashed on Morrow's Peak outpost in Devil's Roar, is called the Shroudbreaker. And the lore in Forsaken Shores last year referred to the idea of this magical figurehead, and the Shroudbreaker artifact that you'll come across in Tall Tales that you see in the trailer, that's really the key behind it. And we're really keen to kind of dive a little bit deeper into the idea of, well, who scrawled all these cave paintings? Like, what's the nature of the Devil's Shroud that surrounds a Sea of Thieves? Does it kind of move? How do you get to the Sea of Thieves? How do you move between regions in the Sea of Thieves? And the Shroudbreaker is kind of the key to it all, but it's a magical kind of artifact that you recover on the Tales.
I'm just so nervous that you're going to give something away. That was a perfect answer. It's perfect.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm on my best behaviour.
Yeah, it's great. It's going to be great.
Art Blaster on Twitch says, will all the Tall Tales be available on the 30th? And will you be adding more Tall Tales in the future?
So, the Shores of Gold story in its entirety available day 1, April 30th. You can go and take on that at your heart's content, play it all through in one go, however way you want to consume that content. Tall Tales, the idea of telling stories in the Sea of Thieves world, Tall Tales is the answer to that. Tall Tales is what story is in the Sea of Thieves world. We know what a tall tale is. We know what makes it special. We've built up all this core functionality to release the Shores of Gold, and Tall Tales is very much a platform for us. And everybody knows who plays the game. There's so many stories you can tell in the Sea of Thieves world, and there'll be things that people play in the Shores of Gold story where kind of set your imagination going onto where we could go next. So there's so many more stories we could tell, and you'll see us do more stories throughout year 2. More Tall Tales.
And we have, we obviously have we kind of see it as 2 platforms now, right? We have Arena as this kind of ongoing experience we're going to build on, and Adventure as this other one. Tall Tales is part of it.
They're both platforms, right? I mean, and we see players seamlessly moving between the two. You can play an arena game, and it's this 24-minute session, high intensity, and then you can go and uncover this ancient mystery in the Shores of Gold, and they're very much these complementary experiences. If you're kind of time short and you want to have that epic session, you go play Arena, or you can go and uncover the story of the Shores of Gold. And both of these platforms, Adventure, Arena, are going to progress as we go throughout year 2. Incredibly exciting time. April 30th, we couldn't be more proud of what we've created.
Yes.
Can't wait for people to play it.
So I was just looking at one there saying, Jamie 89 on Twitch says, when you turn in the chest with 3 skulls, do you still have the chest and can go fill it up again, or do you sell the chest at the same time?
That's a great question. We originally considered that with the design of the collector's chest, right? We had this that you could cash it in one go, and all 3 skulls would be, obviously you'd earn the rep and the gold for them. We were actually concerned that players would value the collector's chest so much that they accidentally lose it. So we had that working. We took it out and kind of encouraged players. You've now got to kind of drop the chest down, open it, and take the skulls out one by one, because we don't want to take that away from you. If you've found one emergently, or you've got one left over from a Tall Tale, which you can obviously keep, we don't take that away from you. It's just a tool you can use however you see fit.
And some of them are really pretty.
They are.
There's more than one type. That's
spoilers.
There's collector's chests in the world that you can find and use however you see fit, and there's also kind of visually different ones depending on the story that you're embarking upon.
It's very themed.
So there's 2 that kind of run in here. There's the Zbass 115 on Twitch says, are we able to level up the Hunter's Call at the same time as we're doing a Tall Tale? And Caveman James UK said, will the Tall Tales contribute to our reputation with the trading companies? Which I feel are the same.
Yes, the first bit, I mean, even when we
were fishing throughout, the whole time we were just fishing and cooking. The whole
knowing
time.
that, I mean, Andy did mention Skeleton Lords, knowing that, you've got this chance to encounter one on a Tall Tale. It's an incentive to go fish and cook and prepare for what's gonna face you.
War.
But being on a tale and fishing over the side as you head to this island to go accomplish a specific goal, that part of a story that you understand, that's what makes it so special. And we every time we play a Tall Tale, we always end up kind of fishing over the side, and then you end up with, we've got some stuff that we've cooked, and then we've got kind of a food barrel full of stuff that we go then hand in at Hunter's Call. So as I said earlier, it's just you can do all of that while you're on a Tall Tale.
And that kind of leads on to these tacos on Mixa says, can we put anything inside the empty chest like cannonballs or bananas?
You can put things inside the chest. Yeah, you can put cannonballs inside the chest. You can put treasure artifacts in there, skeleton fort keys. Like you can put a ton. You can put a ton of different stuff inside the collector's chest.
And they'll float in the water just like any other chest.
Yeah,
for
they're buoyant. They're buoyant. Yeah,
it doesn't even matter how many cannonballs are in it.
No, well, it's tools
believable,
not rules, believable, not realistic.
Come on, not realistic. Come on, we don't want to get in the way of players' fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think that's about us for this one.
That flew by.
That
As
did.
always.
So
Is it 6 o'clock?
yes.
Flew by.
So first of all, I just want to thank you guys for coming on here
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
talking through all these questions with us, and thank you everybody for joining in over the past 3 weeks. If you haven't seen the other streams that we've done one on Arena at the very start, we did one on Hunter's Call last week, and we did the Tall Tales one this week, and there's a wealth of videos, behind the scenes videos, and the trailer that we showed today, as well as the content update videos for Hunter's Call and Arena, so do go check those out if you haven't yet. And this is the final one before launch.
Are we going to show the trailer again?
We are definitely going to show the
What,
trailer
like
again.
right now?
Like right now, but you better watch because there are spoilers. So if you haven't been spoiled already by all these things that are in here,
Get ready.
then get ready and do enjoy, and we'll see you soon.
There is an island that lies beyond the borders of this world. Impossible to reach without great power. The Shroudbreaker is that power. And there are many on these seas who seek it. But this adventure belongs to you. Follow the clues left by those who came before, and the rewards within your grasp are riches unimaginable. If you can face those who guard them. Well, what are you waiting for?
The skull of a skeleton lord. Impressive. But you must take care, for great danger lies ahead.